everybody, and welcome to the world's favorite youth baseball podcast, Clearing the Bases, featuring Coach Jimmy Filangieri. I'm David Friedman. I want to thank you for coming along with us on this journey. How are we doing today, Coach?
Doing good, Dave. How's things with you?
Things are fantastic on my end. It's a bright, sunny day. We are in the midst of baseball season now. It's been a while since we talked, so I'm excited to get down to business with you.
Yeah, and it's nice that this year, because we started the baseball season late, that we're playing these first few games this year in some warmer weather, which is nice. I'm used to freezing to death in the beginning of March.
Yeah, that is a big change, absolutely, and a welcome one for me.
Well, it's funny too, because you just said a key word there that I wanted to bring up. There is a little bit of a change that has happened in the last few weeks. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So we've decided to change the name. No, we're not changing the name. We are the Clearing the Bases podcast. No, I'm very, very proud to announce that I am back in the coaching game. I am officially the assistant JV coach for the Beacon Bulldogs. That's a high school in Dutchess County, New York, near where I live. And there was an opportunity kind of last minute that came up, and coach reached out to me, and we were able to work some things out. And I was very thankful my company worked with me on my schedule to allow me to do it. And so I'm back in after a couple year hiatus. I'm back in live coaching.
That's a beautiful thing. I mean, I got to tell you, I'm extremely, extremely happy for you. And I wish you all of the luck in the world. And I know you'll do a great job there. So I think it's a great thing, and I was happy to hear it.
Great. Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, no, it's exciting. I've been itching to get back in. I was thinking more of on the local level. You know, my kids have aged out. So I was thinking of trying to get back in on the local level with the town ball stuff. And this just fell on my lap. And no, it's been fun. So we've been going for a couple of weeks. It's been tough with the changes with COVID, major changes. We ran 15 days straight with either games or practices, and today is our first day off, and I'm very much looking forward to that. Although, what better thing to do on your day off of baseball than talk about baseball?
Well, this will be good. Now that you're back in the dugout, now we could have discussions and disagreements and beat each other up over things. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to that. Definitely bringing in some real time observations and comments and whatnot. That'll be cool. So first thing we want to do is just, again, thank everybody for coming along with us. As I said earlier, our responses to the first two shows have been fantastic. The second show has eclipsed the first show on number of downloads, which is a great sign. We want to thank everybody for jumping in with us. Continue to reach out to us as you have any ideas or comments on the show. I'm going to do this, just get our information out there. We have our email address set up. It's clearingthebases@gmail.com. Clearingthebases@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle, which is new, is @the CTB show. No underscores, no underlines, nothing like that. Just straight through. So please continue to reach out to us. Again, the response has been great, and looking forward to interacting with all you guys going forward.
Couldn't agree with you more, Dave. The response is overwhelming. I don't think you or I ever thought that it would be the way it is, and we're very happy for that. And I just want to thank everybody for listening to two knuckleheads talk about baseball.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing from us. So, all right. So today we're going to talk a lot about travel baseball. And a lot of it is going to be the concerns we have with travel baseball and the way that we went. Our last episode was on Little League baseball, town baseball, and what was going on with it, and how we think you could start to correct some things. And today we're going to focus on the travel ball game, which is obviously very near and dear to our hearts, and I would assume overwhelming majority of the people that are listening to us.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, travel baseball is here to stay. It has its issues, just like Little League does. You know, some of the issues do overlap, but I would say that it's a different type of problem. And I don't like to use the word problem, or different type of concerns with travel baseball.
Sure. And so I guess, I don't know, maybe we don't need to really do a definition here, but travel baseball is basically anything outside of town or school ball, right? Becomes travel baseball. And this runs the whole gamut from some teams that are just playing some extra games, some extra games on Sundays, which is typically double headers, versus other teams that are practicing all year round and going through specialty practices for catchers and pitchers and outfielders, and going to not just local leagues, but nationwide tournaments where you're traveling, actually having to fly to places. So this covers the whole gambit from very, very basic to extremely involved, and we're going to cover a bunch of those topics here today.
First of all, I think one of the things that we do need to say is that we also said this when we were talking about Little League baseball. We want everybody to understand that we know that there are many travel baseball organizations that do a fantastic job. So we don't want to think that this is, again, bashing on travel baseball. We're not trying to do that. I just want to bring out the point that we know that there are issues out there. There are concerns that people have, but there are a lot of people that do it right. And so by discussing this, what we're probably going to wind up bringing out is the way organizations that are running them correctly are doing it right, and that maybe we should find a way for other programs to model that and, have a good organization themselves.
Well, sure. It's like everything else that we talk about, and everything I talk about in general in life it's about learning and growing and being open to new ideas, and not just saying, hey, I know what to do, and that's what we're doing. And not just saying that this is the way we've always run this team, so we're just going to continue to do right. That. That type of thing drives me crazy. So basically, I mean, we know we read off a bunch of stats last time, so we're not going to rehash that in terms of the amount of people that are playing ball and all that stuff. So let's talk about the general format for, and this would be a higher level travel team, I would say, but one of the concerns that we have is just with the basic schedule during playing season, right?
Right.
So you figure if we look at what high school and college teams run fairly similar in that you're playing or practicing 5-6 days a week. You're almost every day. I think we would get one day off. Basically every day we'd have something. If we're not playing, we're practicing, even if it's a shorter practice or something on an off day. If we have a lot of games in a row, we might just have a short session of hitting session or something like that. But you're talking about 5 or 6 days a week. College rosters, high school rosters can have a huge range. I don't know if there's a cap on how many they can have. I know some programs are hurting a little bit more than others. I've seen where anywhere from 12, 14 players up into the mid 20s is not unusual. College rosters, you're usually looking at somewhere around 35 players. And then you've got your Major League Baseball, 3 to 4 games in a 3 or 4 day period. Again, might have some double headers in there. You've got a 26 active player roster, and that changes. Keep in mind that there's constant movement on that, with guys being sent up and recalled and all that stuff. So it's not even the same 26 players, which is certainly what you have when you're talking about your high school and your college teams. And then we've got youth baseball. And what are we seeing on that, Jimmy?
Well, as you know, again, I'll say that the programs that do it right probably spend a lot of time on development, and they spend a lot of time practicing, as you just mentioned, that you would with a high school team or a college team. But there are a lot of organizations out there that don't spend a lot of time practicing with their players. They'll go to a tournament on a weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they'll play, I don't know, let's say they'll play 5 to 7 games in that time span, but their roster is only 12 to 15 players. So my concern there is right off the bat, I'm sure you're going to agree with me on this, is how do you do that pitching wise? It's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I think every one of those teams goes into it with the idea, oh, if we have 15 players on the team, 10 of them can pitch. Well, right. Then you get down to the reality and you got 10 kids that can walk out to the mound and throw the ball. Right. So you really have 10 pitchers. And sure, the elite teams are going to have something like that. But take it down a notch or two. You're going to have, I would say, typically, you're going to have your 3 or 4 kids that you feel like it might even be less than that, but 3 or 4 kids that you can count on regularly. And then you have other kids that are just going to eat up some innings for you.
Right. So to your point, the very, very successful organizations that have their national teams, I imagine they have a lot of pitchers at their disposal, we'll say. So if they go to a tournament, they are, taking players from different areas and bringing them in just to pitch for a certain game. That's kind of a different animal. Those organizations are different than most regular travel organizations, I'll say. They have a different plan, a different approach to things where they're trying to showcase their players to get them good spots in college. It's a different animal. But I would say that your average travel team, local average travel team, doesn't have the pitching to do something like that.
Right. And you wind up, I know at least the way it was when I was going there with my kids, most of those tournaments did not really have any rules set up in terms of pitch counts and days of rest, because I saw repeatedly guys pitch on Friday and Sunday, decent number of pitches, and sometimes even Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, depending on how. And like I said, if you're playing, a good sized tournament, 7 games in 3 days, including getting to the playoffs and championships, obviously, that's obviously you're going to be throwing the same kids repeatedly to get, assuming you can get into the finals.
Right. Now, the tournaments, like you said, the tournaments themselves should probably have a way to police that, so that to actually guard against the coach that would do something like that. Whereas if you go, because we in the travel organization, the Cadets Baseball Academy that I coach, we go to a lot of perfect game tournaments, and the pitchers are monitored. You cannot pitch a guy, as you just mentioned, every single day. There's certain pitch counts. And I'm not sure if perfect game follows a pitch smart pitch counts, but there is something that's being followed to say that you can't abuse these kids.
Well, that's good. That's good, because I know it definitely was not that way. Well, again, now that's perfect game, right? So that's that one organization.
Right. And I'm sure there's a lot of other tournaments that have that. I'm just using that because we happen to play in a lot of them, so I know that for sure that there's a way that they police it. And some of the other tournaments we go to may do it also, but I just can't remember off the top of my head.
But you've also seen plenty that don't.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I could sit here and tell you stories of things that I've seen that made me want to throw up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm sure. I know the team that my older son played with, I loved the coach. He played with the same guy I think it was 4 years or so, on a travel team. And I love the guy, but he did do some things that drove me absolutely nuts as a parent and as somebody that just kind of knew how the body works and how it doesn't work and all that. The first time my son pitched for him in a tournament, we had a Friday night game, and he came in for the last inning. It was he pitched 1 inning, struck out the 3 kids, game was over. So he then had him start the next morning, had him be the starting pitcher, which I'm like, all right, I think he threw 9 pitches actually in the first night.
Right.
So he had him start the next game. He wound up throwing the whole game, and it wasn't a ton of pitches. And he asked me about him pitching the next day. I was just like, I'll check with him, but and he just, his arm was fine, his back was a little sore, and I just said, that's it. He's a little sore. Now, to his coach's credit, he backed right off. He didn't say, "Oh, come on, don't you think it," or anything like that, which I'm sure happens plenty of times. But that was the thing where I don't think I ever would have even considered bringing a kid back again.
Of course not. And I can tell you, I've had the reverse happen to me many, many times. where a parent will come to me and say, kid pitched Saturday, and parent will come to me and say, hey, coach, don't worry about throwing him tomorrow. You can throw him. He's good. He's got a rubber arm. And I look at the parent and say, he's not pitching tomorrow. As a matter of fact, you're lucky, or I shouldn't even say that. Not you. The kid is lucky. He probably won't even get in the game. There's no reason for it. He pitched the day before. He did his job. We'll get him in the game and get him an at bat or something like that. But hey, He did his job. It's over.
Right.
We'll go next tournament. Maybe the next tournament he doesn't pitch and he plays all 3 days in the field and everybody's happy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, finding that balance is just, I don't know. It seems like, again, I guess it depends on what the organization's goals are. Is it really the development of the kids, or is it bringing home the trophy?
Yeah. And that's it. What you just said, that's key. Bringing home the trophy. All right. You know me well enough to know every time I'm very competitive on the field. I want to win every single game that I step on that field. I want to win, but okay, I am not going to win a baseball game and abuse some kid's arm because I want to come home with some trophy. That's insane.
Yeah. It's tough finding. I think it's tough finding places that will work on that balance of wanting to win versus making sure the kids are developing correctly and not abusing these kids, and so that their arms are shot by the time they're going into high school.
Right.
It gets maddening.
Right. I mean, we could probably spend the rest of the show talking on just that subject alone.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sorry to take up so much time with that story. It just, I thought it fit kind of perfectly. But there you go. Even somebody that I have a high amount of respect for, doing things that certainly weren't in the best interest of the kid.
Right. Because he was probably trying to win something.
Yep. That's definitely what it was. So that's one of the things is where we talk about just maybe we could sum that up with overuse, right, of these kids. And obviously we focus primarily on pitching, but it fields into other areas too. I mean, obviously catching, you got these catchers that are just absolutely taking a abuse beating behind the plate there, and not just on the knees, but just, blocking balls and taking balls off the chest and off the arms and all that. And one thing we tend to forget about is, while it's not certainly at the same velocity or anything like that, but every pitch that pitcher throws, guess who else is throwing the ball?
Right.
That's the catcher.
Right.
It's throwing it right back to him. So there's a lot of wear and tear on the catchers, and but even regular players taking even a 14 or 15-year-old and playing 7 games in a 3-day span.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That takes a lot of toll on a body, and we all do it. We've all been through tournaments with that stuff, and that's where I would like to think, the better teams that are more concerned about the kids maybe spread that schedule out a little more, where, all right, we're going to do a tournament this weekend, and then we're going to do one in 3 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, where they're not hitting it all the time. I don't know.
Yeah. But something that you just said too, I just want to mention real quickly before we move on, is about, the stress that the catcher has on him. A few weeks ago, I think I had mentioned in the last episode that I went and I watched. I said it was a little league game, and it was a little league that was traveling. So it was a little league travel game. I guess that's what you call it. I don't know. But a kid was on the mound. Kid was pitching. They took him out of the game, put the catcher's gear on him, and put him right behind the plate. For the next pitcher. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this. And I mean, I'm just shaking my head. But that's another issue that, some people have to be made aware of, that that's just not what you do. There's no problem with saying, all right, you're done for the day. You did your job. You pitched your 3-4 innings. Okay, go sit down, and somebody else is going in the game. Somehow we have to get these coaches educated. So, they need to learn this. Or as a parent, if that's what he's doing, or educating the parents so that the parent knows if that's what the coach is doing, maybe we should find another coach that's going to take care of him instead of beat him to death.
Yeah, well, that's a whole episode that I want to do down the line, is how, as a parent who maybe doesn't know a ton about baseball, maybe didn't play at anything serious level, like, how do I find myself a travel team? So I think that's going to be a whole episode by itself down the line. So stay tuned for that. So, all right. So let's get into some of the things. We talked about last time about the when we're talking about the issues and our concerns with town ball and little league, that anything about any type of governing body, national governing body. So you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Let's face it, Little League, Cal Ripken, they have a governing body. Little League does it, Cal Ripken does it. They put out some guidelines, they put out rules, and travel baseball has nothing like that. Anybody can go and start a team, regardless of their background, regardless of their knowledge. They could just go out and start a team. And maybe if there was a governing body that at the very least says, okay, great, you want to start a travel team. I don't even know if you want to call it maybe like a registration for these teams. Okay, so you want to have a travel team. Great. You have to register with the sanctioning body, and who are your coaches? What's their background? What qualifies them to coach young baseball players?
Yeah, that would be a fantastic idea. And even getting into a little bit further, some stuff that I just had to do for the first time in many years, which I'm sure you do it every year, every couple of years, is the whole like the CPR training and the concussion training I had to go through to become a high school coach. So yeah, I mean, you got these guys just kind of like you said, just starting teams, and they may not even carry a med kit with an ice pack in it.
Sure.
Much less knowing about how to take care of the kids and their arms and their mental aspect of it and all that. So, it would be great to have some kind of governing body, and this is where we'd like to think that the tournaments would hold people accountable to, but unfortunately, like we talked about, I think last time, most of these are just for-profit companies.
Yeah.
And don't want to interfere with the checks coming in.
Yeah. And I mean, not only a registration for your coaches, but maybe like we had discussed before that, hey, if you want to start an organization, make sure your coaches take, and we'll go back to USA Baseball because that's where I believe this better source of information is. You're required to take, course A, B, C, D, submit the results to us, because when you do take these courses, they do give you a certificate of completion. Send them in. Okay, great. Your coaches are okay to go. I mean, that recently I just became a scout for USA Baseball. And in order to be a scout, I had to take most of the requirements I already met, but there was one that I didn't. So I took the course and I sent it in, and now I'm okay to be a scout for them. So if everybody else did something like that where there are requirements, then there you go. At least it'll be better than what we have right now.
Right. We gotta kind of level up the baseline is really what we're talking about. At least, have some kind of a baseline of here's what you need to do just to walk through the door.
Yes, I agree. And right now there's nobody doing it. And I've seen it time and time again where somebody gets disgruntled. They don't like the way the certain travel organization that their kid is playing for. They don't like what's going on. So they pull their kid out and they say, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to start my own travel team. And he may not even have a baseball background. Nothing. And here he is. And this is how kids' arms get abused and all of these problems, they rear their ugly head.
Right. Yeah. That's so, yeah. So that would be, I'm on board with that 100%. I think going through some minimum level of qualifications of coaching, getting coached as a coach, sort of changing around our little slogan there.
I love the way you did that. That was very good.
Nice, right? So, that I think would help. Just establish a starting point. So one of the things that can be looked at as, to me, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, is just the sheer number of travel organizations. I know you've been doing some research, and obviously you've been coaching travel ball for a number of years now, straight through. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, and again, this will probably even tie back into the Little League problem, is that in our area alone, you and I both know within, I don't know, say a 30-minute radius, there has to be hundreds of travel teams. I went on the Greater Hudson Valley Baseball League site to try and see how many teams. First of all, the one thing that shocked me was that right now in the spring, and I looked at the older age groups, say, 14 and up, there are travel teams that are playing. So that tells me one of two things. Either you have high school players that are not only playing for the high school, but they're also playing for a travel team, or you have a travel team that's comprised of players that are non-high school players.
Which these days could be two different things, though. It could be kids that didn't make the high school team, or in a lot of cases, what I'm hearing is there's kids that are foregoing high school ball because they feel like travel ball gives them more of a showcase.
Okay, so I guess
either way, probably not good.
Right. Well, there you go.
Okay, I'm sorry, good. But
yeah, because that's what I was just going to say. I mean, again, we'll go back to the sense of community that, again, we talked about in the last episode. Don't you want to play for your high school team? That is the best thing on the face of the earth. Okay, playing for your high school team, and for a lot of kids, it's the last stop. So why take that away?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you've seen it yourself. I know I'm just read some articles on it, and from some of the blogs that I'm looking at, I'm seeing more and more of that. I'm seeing it, and it's certainly not just for baseball. I'm seeing it, I guess, probably for everything except for football. There's really right. no high level rec or travel football program out there yet. It'll probably come, but definitely seeing it basketball where kids are playing AAU instead of high school because the seasons can overlap, and soccer, and we're seeing it in baseball, certainly.
Right. So, the sheer number of teams to me is problematic. It's a concern because there are not that many players that can play at that level. And again, the sheer number of teams tells me that there's probably kids that are playing that are just trying to extend maybe, their playing time with maybe and I hate to use this term, but I have to do it, but maybe like with a dad coach that's just trying to extend his son's playing time because maybe he didn't make his high school freshman team. So, right away, the freshman coach doesn't know what he's doing. My kid is better than this and this. So I'm going to take a bunch of guys and go travel with them. All right. Maybe that's not so much of a concern because the kids are still playing baseball. And I don't know. I just feel like it's being watered down that way, but go ahead.
No, well, so this is an area where we're going to diverge in certain ways, but and when I say that to start this section off with, where we talked about it being a double-edged sword, the number of teams around, because it does give a lot more opportunity for kids to play, and to me that's fine, but where I think the problem and the concern comes in is there's the intention and then there's the reality and what it grows into.
Right. So I think what you just said is perfect because I think that's what I was trying to say. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing, because you did touch on it. So we take a group of kids that didn't make their JV or their varsity team, and we put them on a team. So now, instead of being a one age group, maybe it's wherever that starts, I don't know, 14 to 16 or 15 to 18, something like that. And you fill it in with some other kids they're decent players and whatever. As long as your intention is just to give them some drilling time, some practice time, and some playing time, and you're playing teams that are of a similar setup, then I think that's great. What I think where the issue comes in is where that team turns into a full-fledged travel team, and where now you've got maybe 15, let's say it's 15 to 17, something like that. And now they're playing against a true 17U team.
Yes.
And they're going to get their brains beat in. Neither team's going to enjoy it because
right.
the I don't know, hate to say regular team or the regular, they're playing against some kids that are 2 years younger than them that weren't good enough to play with kids their own age, and now they're playing up 2 years.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's so again, I think the intention is good. It's the regulations that need to kind of step in and say, okay, here's what I don't know. I don't know how you could do this, but he's just kind of say, here's what you're going to be allowed to do with this team. And if a bunch of towns did that or a bunch of schools did that, almost had like a B team, I think that could work well.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
But the other thing too that comes to mind with what you were just saying is a good organization. One of the key components of a good organization is to be honest. You have to, even if the truth hurts, you have to be honest. And that's what the goal is, where, there are organizations that will say, yeah, you know what? I think that your kid is a D1 player. We're going to take him on a team and this and that. Meanwhile, the kid, probably can't even get out of high school. So honesty is huge in travel baseball. And a lot of times from what I'm hearing and what I read, that's not necessarily the case all the time. There are people that do it, but it's not the case all the time.
Right. And one of the things that'll bleed into one of our other topics, I think this is a natural segue, is getting into the cost of travel baseball and how prohibitive that can be. But again, this is where you got to look at what you got to, it's a tough thing that depends on, I guess, when you start organizing the team, whether it be in the fall for the next year or in the spring for that year. And you can kind of take a look at what your talent is and have a realistic expectation and go, okay, this is a team where we've got 8 starting players from 5 local high schools. Okay, we're going to be, we're going to the best of the best. We're going to all those high level tournaments and that. And then you got another team where it's like, okay, half my team didn't make their town all-star team. Okay, right. So how are we going to handle this? Well, let's join up with a Sunday league. Let's find a league that has an A and a B level, if not more. And let's play at the right level. Let's play in that. And, if we can find a local tournament to go to in a couple of months after we've had some time to play together as a team and try to work on it, maybe that just as kind of a bonus thing. And not just bonus, that also could be good as a true barometer of where you're at.
Sure. And it's also good developmentally. That's one of the things that I believe that the Greater Hudson Valley League does that is fantastic. They have different levels for different teams. So, maybe a team that doesn't have the talent is competing against similar teams, and then now it's competitive, and that's fine. That's great. That's great.
Right.
But don't take them and try and put them in a perfect game. Well, you would have to be accepted to go to, but you know what I'm getting at. Don't go, don't take that team and try and go to a higher level tournament. That's crazy.
Right. And then we get into the cost of those things. And I think we talked a little bit about this previously, but just the entry fee into tournaments now, and I'm not picking on them because I love the facility, which it's relatively close. I think it's within 2 hours of where we live. Down at Diamond Nation has been one of my favorite facilities to go to when my kids were playing travel ball. And they ran very efficient tournaments, and the facilities were top notch at the time. Yeah. Okay. Good. They, the cost just to get in there is coming up on $1,000 or so per tournament.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, spread that out over 15 kids. That's $80 or $90 just per time. So if you want to go 5 times over the summer, that's, too much math, but there's $400 there's $400 per kid just in tournament fees, and then you've got your home and away uniforms. You've got to pay for practice facilities. You got to pay for fields and sometimes permits, and to get into the league there's a fee, and there's all different. I don't know, what are some of the other things going into the different cost levels?
Well, you have paid coaches. Most maybe I shouldn't say that. That's why I'm hesitating on my words here. I won't say most, but there are a lot of organizations that have paid coaches. You have, the equipment and insurance, and then some of the teams market so that they can get players. There's just so much cost involved.
And then just the travel cost itself if it's a family of 4 that's going away for a weekend, you've got hotels and meals and gas and all that stuff. Possibly taking time off of work. Sometimes a lot of these bigger tournaments are Friday tournaments, start on Friday. So, so there's a lot of things that go in there. So that's one of the things. And again, talk about it a future thing when you're trying to find your team as a newer player coming into this type of market. But that's where you got to look and say, okay, well, this team is going to cost me what, $5,000 is not that wouldn't make you bat an eye at this point, right?
Yeah, no, not at all.
Yeah. So for some of these bigger ones, so this team might cost me $5,000 and this team might cost me $900 or $1,000 to get into. And then I got to look and say, okay, what level is my kid at? And where does he belong? And, and some of that is like, well, I want to find a team. And I think I'm bleeding into a different topic here, but I want to find a team that my kid could play with for 4 years straight. Well, there's no way you're going to know that on day one. There's just no way, because we don't really know what level he's at and he or she is at, and how are they going to grow? How are they going to develop? Are they still going to want to play 3 years from now? And are they going to want to play with these kids? And how many of the other kids on that team are going to swap out and go to a different team and all that stuff? So that is something I really do. I think, especially when your kids are younger, you really got to look at just taking it kind of one year at a time and say, what's realistic for me and my kids. And that, I guess that bleeds into, when do we start playing travel ball? Right.
Wow.
And that's where, again, I think we have a little bit of a difference of opinion on this, but both obviously well-meaning for the sake of the kids. So let's talk a little bit about how these things, how we start down this journey of travel ball.
Okay. So I guess you want me to go first with this.
Yeah, I'll let you take this one.
Jeez. Okay. So I've heard, I mean, I'm really at a loss for words to even say this, but I've heard as young as 6 where they have tournaments, 6U tournaments. I don't know what the purpose of that is. It doesn't make any sense to me. I am a firm believer that kids should not start playing travel baseball till they get to 13. Let them develop. If you want to get, like you had said, maybe get with a travel team that maybe will have you in a local league where you can get, with these local leagues, if you play spring, summer, fall, I bet those kids will probably be playing close to 50 games, which I think is too much before 13 anyway.
Sure.
So it's you're going to get your playing time. And if you get together with an organization that has people that understand how to develop players, and that's a great thing. It could even be Little League. Let them play Little League or let them play this travel. Maybe they do both of them. But to actually have, and I use the word travel, I shouldn't have said that, but put together a team that plays in like a local league before you get to going to, Diamond Nation or going to Perfect Game or going, traveling to different states with a team to see how they stack up. Wait until they're 13 when they get to the big field, and now start seeing, what you have in town, what you've developed, what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, and this is where, again, we differ a little bit, because I focus in on just opportunity for kids to play, and it might be, but again, with the caveat of it's got to be done intelligently, it's got to be done the right way. Where, like you said, don't take this group of kids that are just mushed together and take them out to this high power. Well, again, at that age, I agree with you 100%. I don't know what the purpose of going to a 6U, 7U, even when you get into 8 and 9, and my kids did some at I think at 9 and 10 even, and even at that point it was like, I don't know. I look back at it after the season was over, and just be like, what did we just do? I mean, the kids, again, my older son was on a very good team kind of right from the get-go. So yeah, they won a bunch and he felt good about that. But what did he really get out of it at that point, for the long term? And that's a kind of a tough self-reflection to be looking at. Is this because, is my son dying to go to tournaments because he can go to stay in a hotel with his friends and go to the pool?
Right. And run around the hotel all night.
Yeah. I think I could find better uses of my weekend at better places than at some hotel pool that's out in the middle of nowhere.
Right. With regards to that, I have a little bit of an analogy. Right. What I think happens is, and I think I've seen this because I'm a little bit older. We won't get into that. I've seen this happen throughout the years. Is everybody's trying to rush everything. Everybody they want that instant gratification now. And what I'll use as an example is when I was a kid in high school, the junior prom. Right. It was a bunch of kids. We got together. We went to the gym. We had, a couple sandwiches, some soda, right. Some music playing. We danced. We had fun. We went home.
Spike the punch,
Well, of course. Now, with my kids, the junior prom was like it was like a wedding. Yep. Limousines, tuxedos, this, that. Why are we rushing? And why can't they wait to do that when they're a senior? Why? Right. So that's the analogy that I use with the travel baseball. They want 6, 7, 8, 9. They want these kids because they want to be like the big kids already, and they're not. Right. Wait until you become a big kid.
Right. I mean, and that's the whole thing. It's like, if I don't know, I guess if the team does well, they get the medal or they get the little trophy or whatever, and of course the kids feel great about that, but I don't know. It just, I don't know what you're really accomplishing with that. Again, are these kids really learning their sportsmanship at that point? Are they really learning how to develop into players at that point? I mean, they're barely able to run in a straight line at 6 years.
Right.
When they're,
right.
I couldn't imagine trying to coach a tournament team at that point. That's to me, that's so over the top. Yeah, I mean, I go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say again, I do believe that getting extra reps when they get into real little league age, the 9 to 12, getting the extra reps, I don't have a problem with. If you, and I don't want to say it that way, like I'm a genius with this stuff, but it's you playing their spring ball and then playing a little bit more over the summer with a summer league. Or even during the spring, your little league teams, at least you're not playing 5 days a week or anything like high school and college teams are. So they might have 1 or 2 games a week and maybe 1 practice a week, something like that. So if they are also playing a game or 2 on a Sunday, there's probably not too much of a chance of burnout on that. But there certainly could be. For a good number of the kids. And again, that's where you take a positive and turn it into a negative of like, oh, he's getting all this extra opportunity. Okay. Does he or she really want that extra opportunity? And maybe they do for a couple of weeks, but what if they don't come the 4th week and it's a 8-week season?
Sure.
So, yeah. So you are able to teach the lesson at that point of don't say you want to do something on day 1 and then on day 12 all of a sudden it's over. So, and we all go through that with our kids, I think, whether it be with sports or musical instruments or whatever the case may be, getting into collecting something and all of a sudden it fades out. It's like, hey, so this is 8 weeks, we're in it from beginning to end. Or some parents, it's not going to be worth the argument and let the kid drop out. Right. So it gets tough. And obviously the younger you start with that, just the more likely you're going to have of that interest fading, I think.
Right. Well, what I would like is I would like somebody to enlighten me on this. All right. You go to a 7U tournament, 8U tournament, whatever it is, and little Johnny's running down to first base, close play. The umpire calls him out. Little Johnny starts crying. Okay. How do you deal with that? All right. Because he's a 7, 8-year-old boy. He probably should be crying. What do you do? Tell him to stop crying? I mean,
right. Yeah. Is a 7-year-old going to be, hey, just don't be upset about what happened. Think of the learning opportunity for next time. Yeah.
So what are you doing? Take those kids and practice with them, develop them, teach them how to play the game the right way. And then, like I said, I'm repeating myself, when they get to 13, I was talking to one of our 10-year-old coaches. This is going back a couple of years because we don't have 10-year-old teams anymore. But I went back and he had a kid on the mound, 10 years old, working on a pickoff move. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, he's got to have a pickoff move." So I said, "Why? He's 10. So I said, "Well, there's leading and stealing." I didn't know what to say. I mean, I stuttered probably worse than I just did right there. I said, "Don't they realize that every walk is a triple? The catcher can't throw him out. The pitcher can't pick him off.
Right.
What are we doing?"
And that's exactly what happened. Like I said, my kids started playing travel younger than yours did. Again, this is more as travel was really just getting off the ground, say 12 years ago or so, something like that. And yeah, I remember my shock the first time when they was told about, oh, we have this, it was always field size. We had, was it 4660 for the pitcher's mound and the bases. And then you go to professional and it's 60-90 and that's it. And all of a sudden there was, oh no, there's 50-70. And I'm like, well, what's 50-70? Like, oh, 50-70. And so they can lead and steal. And it's, it's real baseball. It's real baseball. It's great for the kids. And I'm like, real baseball? Really? Because, I played in college and I've watched a lot of, whether it be minor league or pro baseball games. And I don't remember every kid getting on first automatically getting to third, and that's exactly what you said. Everything becomes a triple. The slowest kid on the team, if you're leading with 50-foot bases, 70-foot bases, you're able to lead and you can leave as soon as the pitcher starts his delivery.
Yeah,
the slowest kid on the team is going to get there. I'm sure there's that one catcher that developed early and can make a throw consistently down there. But 99% of the time, it was ridiculous. Like, this isn't real baseball,
right? So one of the things I think is extremely important that we need to discuss is the situation where we have high school coaches that are coaching travel teams. So I see that there are a lot of concerns with it, because if it's not done right, I don't know how else to say it, but you'll probably wind up pissing off a lot of people.
Yes, indeed. And this is something that we're gonna get into a little bit here, and obviously don't want to come across as hypocritical or anything like that. You are a high school coach that is also coaching a travel team. I am not coaching travel right now, but I certainly leave the opportunity for that open down the road. So let's talk about. Let's get into some details. What's our main concerns when it comes to high school coaches being involved with travel?
I happen to coach my high school baseball in White Plains. I coach my travel baseball in Fishkill. None of my high school players play for me on my travel team. So I think that it's important to make that distinction. Many high school coaches, I understand this principle. What they're probably trying to do is they're probably trying to build their programs stronger by being involved with the travel. So this way, once the high school season is over, they can keep those players going through the summer and, keep building upon whatever they have. And I think that it's probably one of the ways that a lot of high school coaches look at it.
Yeah. So I think probably to sum it up is we probably don't think that most people are doing this with the intention to do anything devious or, it's just a matter of unintended consequences, which is a lot of what we talk about, even what we talk about with some of the teams. If it starts off, if you've got a team of players that in regular travel baseball, a team of players that maybe aren't at an elite level, they're a lower level. They should be in, B level leagues or C level leagues and B level tournaments. And you just, by nature of attrition, you just kind of start pushing them to go into higher and higher levels that they don't belong in. So it's sort of that same type of thing. We don't think anybody's going in with any type of nefarious ideas. It's just these things tend to kind of get a life of their own. I think when it comes to these teams where you probably have the best intentions of, like you said, keeping that continuity of playing, because let's face it, the high school season itself, now this year it's even shorter, but it's a relatively short season. Yes. So trying to keep teams together on the surface sounds like it makes sense, but what's the concerns that we have with that?
Well, I mean, again, I think that concept is good, but actually the way you said that with the unintended circumstances is probably right. First of all, what I want to say is that if you look at it practically, the high school coach is probably better trained, more experienced than, I won't say most travel coaches, but some travel coaches. Okay. So right off the bat, you're starting your travel team off correctly, you know, in the right situation where you have somebody who's very experienced working with players to, you know, to make them better. So there are just so many things that come to mind that we'll just say that the perception of it, okay, is bad. So where it always comes down to from my point of view is when you're picking a team. So you have this coach that's coaching travel, and then it comes time to pick his high school team. Well, let's say your roster is 20 players on your high school team. We all know that probably your 10, 12, maybe even 15 players, right off the bat, you know who they are. Everybody knows who they are. They're the better players. You could see it. Everybody knows. The problem comes down to those last cuts. And that's always where the problem goes. We'll call them bubble players, so to speak. The way I see it, that's where the problem comes in, because that difference between a kid you cut versus a kid that you keep is very, very small. It's razor thin. And that's where parents will say, well, why did so-and-so make the team? Well, he made it because he plays on a coach's travel team, but this other kid didn't. Well, you know, the coach may have more information on that kid because he did play with him. On one hand, it's a good thing because he does know more about the player. And the other thing that people don't understand is that when you get down to those last picks, it may come to something as very simple as, well, this kid is faster than that kid, so I may need a pinch runner somewhere, so I'm going to take him in case I need him.
All right. So again, this would be in a situation where it's not a problem. There's a justification for why the coach is doing what he's doing in terms of this is a kid that's making the high school team because he does have more information. Because let's face it, if all we're going on, a lot of times we might have winter workouts with a school team, even though the season is very short. So we have kind of those unofficial gym workouts over the winter or whatnot. But if you got a kid who plays basketball or something like that, or wrestles, then he's not going to be able to go to those winter workouts. So there is a bubble of a couple of days, right? Typical tryouts are just over a couple of days. So a kid has one bad day that could, and the coach is not real familiar with them, that could sink him. So I mean that's a legitimate reason to take a kid. Is I've got these two kids. One, there's a lot of unknowns. The other one, I know what his strengths and weaknesses are. I feel like I can work on his strengths, and he will be a productive member of the team. He's got a good attitude. I'll take him because I know him.
Right. And I believe for the most part that the coaches are, to the best of their ability, I believe that they're probably trying to be unbiased. Because again, as a high school coach, I really want the best players that I could find to be on that team. So I look at it like it doesn't matter where he plays his travel ball. Even if my players did play for me, I would feel that I would try and be as unbiased as possible when I'm picking the team. However, the perception is that it's biased because he played. And I'm going to go into one quick real story because this just happened this year about one of my travel players who I've coached him for 2 years. I've been around him much more than the high school coaches have. And I know the kid's ability and I know what he can do. Came to his tryouts. He's a ninth grader. He tried out for JV and he didn't make the JV team, but he made the freshman team. But I knew that his ability was such that he should have been playing on the JV team. But again, it's not my decision. So he wound up being on the freshman team. And what I heard through the grapevine was the justification was that, well, the high school coaches had their travel and they knew the players that they took better. They didn't have enough information on this particular kid. So they figured, well, we'll put him on freshman. Well, he goes out and pitches his first freshman game just the other day, and he throws a no-hitter. So there you go.
Yeah, that's not a common occurrence at that level. No way.
Right.
So,
but you can see how that could become a problem.
Yeah. And so, it's perception, and it can cause some resentment, certainly on behalf of the player. And if not the player, the parent, certainly. And those types of stories tend to grow with a life of their own, where all of a sudden the coach gets that kind of reputation. Again, we'd like to think most people are doing it for the right reasons, but at the end of the day, a lot of these travel teams are businesses, and they're run as businesses. So if you have a coach that is a high school coach, and he's also coaching a travel team, and he's getting paid by the travel team, and maybe if he's not just getting paid by the travel team, but if he's running the travel program, and we've seen that in our area, where there was a local coach that set up a whole program with all different age groups. And so I think one of the concerns from that coach, whether he likes it or not, it's got to come into play is, wow, when I'm picking my high school team, if I don't take this kid that just paid to play on my travel team, is he going to come back to my travel team next year?
Right.
Probably not. I don't know if this other kid that I take is in a position to come on my travel team, whether, from whether it be a time standpoint or a money standpoint or whatever. So I almost, from a business standpoint, now I'm looking at having to not take the better player because I could lose out on money. Again, I doubt very many people are sitting there doing that equation, but it's going to factor in.
Sure.
Subconsciously, it's going to factor in. I don't see any way that it couldn't.
Right. But, again, now you're talking about the financial aspect of it. Isn't that always where the problem comes in? Okay. If there was no money involved and anybody could go and they could play with these coaches in the off season, I don't think there would be that much of an issue, unless, like you said, a kid is playing another sport and he's unable to get there. But it's a lot different when you put the financial aspect into it. So another point, what if there's a player whose parents simply can't afford to play on that travel team?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that actually comes to mind for me. As we've talked about, there's wide ranges of costs involved here, from anywhere from, but even on the low end, you're looking at in the very low end, you're looking in the high hundreds, more than likely for a year, up into the thousands of dollars coming in. And yeah, there's got to be plenty of parents that either can't afford it, or they find some way to afford it, but they really shouldn't, because as a parent, hey man, you see the way this program is set up. You play for the travel team, you play for the school team, and I can't risk my son not making the school team. So, we're gonna sacrifice, we're gonna do whatever. It could mean that another kid can't do a travel program because this kid is, or can't play a sport because this kid is, whatever the situation is. But yeah, I would see that as a major issue, even if it's more from a perception standpoint than reality. But the reality is, I think that has to come into play. Maybe they could set up if the team was set up as some kind of almost as a not-for-profit, and they got some sponsors or something like that, where nobody paid, or everybody paid a nominal fee, almost like you paid for Little League, $100 for the year or something like that. That would be a way to take that, where at least everybody's on what we'd call an even playing field as far as the opportunity to play, because otherwise, again, you're starting at a rough spot for some of these people, where some of the parents are going to have to make really, really tough decisions and have some really, really tough conversations with a 14-year-old boy or girl about, we're just not in a position for you to be able to do this. and, the kid resenting his parents and whatever else. So, if a team could be set up something like that, where there was some kind of a benefactor and everybody was able to get, anybody that wanted to play could play. And it was, like I said, set up as a not-for-profit. And I could see teams being able to do that.
Sure.
The same way they get sponsorships for the school team for the program that comes out, and parents can buy banners, but you go to local businesses and they buy ads and things like that. Maybe something like that could work. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, me neither. But it is a solution, and again, I understand why it's done, and I do understand the whole process. I get it. It's just, again, it's something that's kind of like a little bit of a stain on travel baseball, because some people get slighted by it, even though there may be a valid reason for a kid not making a team other than that he didn't play on the coach's travel team. People are going to perceive it that way. People are going to say, well, that's the reason. So I don't know if there's a solution. I've heard people talk about, just banning it, but I don't think that's the answer, because coaches are going to find a way around it.
Right. And it's also kind of like what you said earlier. I think we want good coaches in travel baseball. So, and it's tough. Not everybody, certainly most people that coach high school baseball probably coach in their own general area. So I think the situation that you're in is certainly a little more unique, where you have, for those that don't know, it's probably, but the distance between where you coach in White Plains and where your travel facility is a good, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, something like that. Close to an hour. So, so there is a big distinction there, where chances are very, very slim that a parent is going to look to sign their kid up for your program because of that. It certainly could happen, but I think most coaches are probably more in their general area where they're going to go. And that's where you're going to see a lot of that overlap. And I could see, so on the other side of that, again, more of the altruistic view from the coach's standpoint of they want to keep their program together. They want to keep them practicing throughout the year to keep that continuity. And from their ideal standpoint, it's also helping to build the community. Something that we talked about when we talked about our Little League program was building the community. And I think in their minds, that is a way to help build the community by keeping those kids together on one team and saying, okay, so if you are XYZ, we're the XYZ town team type of thing, like kind of keep the, if your moniker, I'm trying to pick a mascot or a team name of not one of our local teams. I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but we'll just say if your school mascot is the Cardinals and you call your travel team the Cardinals, if you're the Jonestown Cardinals travel team and you're the Jonestown High School Cardinals, you're keeping that continuity together and everybody feels like it's the same. But it can, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of pitfalls. Another thing in thinking about the topic is beyond the cost and the perception of, well, this kid only made the team because he's already paying, he's essentially paying the coach to be on the high school team. That would be the perception of what we talked about earlier. I think that's a way to sum it up. One of the other things I could see is a kid feeling he has no choice but to play for that team when maybe he's been on a travel team since he was, I know you don't like this, but since he was 11. So he was on the same travel team, and the core of the team stays together to 12, and they stay together to 13. Oh, now all of a sudden we got school ball. And now that kid feels like, or the kid's parents feel like he has no choice but to switch allegiances and join up with this school team because he doesn't want to hurt his chances of either A, making the team, or B, getting solid playing time.
And I bet that's the case. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Because I've even heard people talk about just as simple as like the high school team doing winter workouts. They're not really formal. You don't have to be there, but God forbid you miss one.
Right.
You know, the parent, I've heard people say it for my travel players, you know, coach, he can't make practice today. They're having his local high school is having a workout. He has to be there. And that's fine if that's the way you feel.
Right. I mean, it's as long as they're, I guess, on the surface, as long as they're getting some kind of baseball practice in there. But then again, are they doing it because it's what they want to do, or are they doing it because they feel like they don't have a choice because there could be repercussions on the school team if they don't? And listen, that's part of life. Some people are going to say, oh, that's part of life. But that's a tough lesson for a 14-year-old kid to start doing it at that level.
Right. So I think kind of to bring this all together with the high school coaches doing travel baseball is there is no answer. It has its good points. It has its bad points. I think it's here to stay. I don't think it's going to go away. But again, it's just something that I thought we needed to bring up, you know, for maybe people to start discussing to see the ways maybe you could make this better for everybody involved.
So we got into so many good topics and such a good discussion that we decided to turn this show into two separate ones. We appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to us. We know your time is valuable, so we don't want to keep you too long. So we're going to cut it here and come back to us next week for the second half of this conversation, where we get into even more issues and even more solutions for the whole how to clean up travel baseball. I'm David Friedman. Reach out to us. You can email us at clearingthebases@gmail.com. Hit us up on our Twitter @the CTB Show. That's @the CTB Show. We'd love interacting with you, and join, rate, subscribe, review, all that fun stuff. And I'll leave you with my normal. Hey, only two things in this world that we can control at all times. That's our effort and our attitude. Put out 100% effort, positive mental attitude, PMA, and good things will follow. Coach?
So I hope everybody enjoyed this episode on travel baseball. Like Dave said, there's just so much to cover that we're going to break it up into two episodes. What I would say is stay tuned. Look forward to it. We'll probably send this one out quicker than we have with the other episodes. And I'm just going to leave you with, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Take care, everyone. Thank you for all of the support, and we'll see you soon.